Hello and welcome to Profiles in Risk. This is your host, Tony Cañas, and I'm feeling a little naked today because I am not in my home office, so I don't have my fancy camera. I'm visiting my mother-in-law in Columbus, Ohio, so I have the annoying fake background. But David looks like I'm in the book, so we're good. So today I have with me David Carpentier, the co-founder and CEO at Assuredly. David, thank you for joining me today. How's it going?
Oh, wonderful. Long week. We're ready for Friday. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So David and I connected a couple of weeks ago. It's hard to keep track of time anymore, but a couple of weeks ago, when I visited Austin for InsurTech Austin. Thank you so much, Andrew Correll, for inviting me to that. I've been wanting to attend one of those events for a long time. So you spoke at a panel in InsurTech Austin, and I was very impressed. So I immediately asked him if he would come on the podcast, and he immediately said yes. And here we are today. So I always kind of break the ice a little bit with the weather usually. So Austin, and we're recording on September 16. I'm assuming it's still about 110 degrees in Austin.
Austin this week was not terrible. I came to New York late last night. I'm between InsurTech Connect is next week, so we have meetings here today, Vegas next week, and I won't be back in Austin until next Friday. Mm-hmm. That being said, it was a miserably warm summer in Austin.
So New York in September is probably beautiful.
Beautiful here right now. It's absolutely stunning.
Awesome.
Just walking to the office in Soho, you get that first kind of taste of crisp air.
Awesome, and I will definitely be at ITC. I'm flying in on Monday, flying back on Friday. So I'll be there wearing my top hat and my red jacket. So I'll see you there. So David, we always give the chance for the guests to give the elevator pitch. What is Assuredly?
So Assuredly does three core things. So we're speaking to insurance folks here today. So there's three core things to what Assuredly does. Is we build and/or adapt new insurance products for changing industries, changing marketplaces, ultimately a changing risk, a changing customer, and a changing place of where that customer wants to access and purchase and/or transact for their insurance products. Although we can operate with folks knocking on our door or outbound, we typically focus on what the industry is now referring to as embedded distribution. So we focus on, partnering with what we refer to as non-insurance native third parties to embed insurance services into their ecosystems. And then we support that with the full insurance marketplace that looks and feels kind of like an insurance broker on steroids. Legally, we operate as both an MGA and as a broker today. We have 3 current MGA programs in market. That list is growing very, very fast. We'll be handing out 6 new submissions. I'm sorry, we're on the corner here, so if you hear the honking, people trying to get into the Holland Tunnel. We're expecting 6 additional MGA submissions to go out in the fourth quarter this year. And then we placed in 2021 with 43 different insurance carriers as a broker.
43 carriers. Okay, awesome. So you've got a good amount of access. Awesome. So I love that you went right away and told me legally we're a broker and MGA, because I always go out of my way to ask, okay, so how are we structured? Are you a carrier? Are you an MGA? Are you a broker? What are you? So thank you for jumping onto that one ahead of time. Okay, so the embedded space is like red hot right now. It's like all anybody's talking about lately is embedded. Yeah. So I like the fact that you specifically said what we are now referring to as embedded.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what led you to say it that way?
Well, and I still believe that the definition of embedded is going to be an evolving term, right? For better or for worse, embedded today is it gets the clickbait. It's kind of like putting, for folks that are raising capital right now, it's kind of like putting AI or ML in your deck, 4 years ago. You need to have some derivative or speak about an embedded strategy. I think we tie a lot back to value propositions. And so when you truly embed into, the new softwares operating businesses and people's lives versus are you just operating an affinity program with, with a different name, right? So I think it's the embedded model. People have been doing varieties of it for years. Portfolio purchasing for private equity firms is a good example of it. Certainly some folks that, nearly all the big brokers have affinity divisions that, there's select programs within those that certainly can be tagged as embedded. So it's a little bit of a wide definition. But when we define it, it's very much that third party we're hoping has a value proposition that is more than saying, hey, we have a bunch of customers that buy insurance. You guys sell that stuff. How about you sell some insurance to our customers and give us a fee on the way through? That's essentially affinity. It's being labeled as embedded. We're hoping to evolve the industry to continue to focus on increased value propositions other than just co-marketing.
So evolving embedded and the changing definition of embedded, and I didn't prepare you for this question, so if it doesn't work out, we'll cut it out afterwards. But what do you see in the future of embedded? Where might embedded be 5 years from now?
It's the core business development strategy or distribution strategy. And you're seeing it today now. I think you're seeing it, the pain is much higher on the, and we don't do a lot in the individual market space, personal lines. But you're seeing the pain on the agent side, the local agents, severely right now, trying to compete with that. I think, our studies said just north of 80% of all insurance policies will be sourced through an embedded partnership in less than 10 years. Not all of those will be transacted in an embedded environment, but certainly the impetus or the original point of acquisition will happen through an embedded partnership.
That's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I'm looking at your website. The new product development area. Okay, so you guys develop new products. Right. So D&O for private company, pretty cool. Lease security deposit, okay, an area of insurance that some others do. But I have to ask about sneaker insurance. I've got to say, I've been in this industry for 12 years, and I've done, well, together, me and Nick Lamparelli and others that have ran the podcast for a little while have done 360 some episodes. In fact, this episode will probably be number 370 by the time it goes live. So more than one per day of the year. And I have never heard of sneaker insurance. So what on earth is sneaker insurance?
Yeah, sneaker insurance is a Trojan horse to a larger collectibles industry.
Okay, perfect.
Essentially what that is. But yeah, no, it's a use case, a very clear use case of a partner that is not shy to let everybody know that we are the insurance on the inside of them. And essentially, think of it as an inventory management for sneaker collections, where there's various insurance levels based on the value of the inventory there, which is the nerdiest way I could possibly say this.
I am loving this so much.
And the branding of this is insure your W's, and there's all kinds of really interesting things that, the naming conventions of how the users of that app interact. It's the intimacy associated with that end users has been fun to get associated with a little bit. I'm not involved as much as the rest of the community. Yeah, the sneaker stuff's cool. It's also information on that. You would have never guessed how expensive some collector Jordans are. More important.
For real. So yeah. and just to make sure we're on the same page. So we are talking final customer, personal lines. Like we're not talking insurance for sellers of collectible sneakers. We're talking insurance for sneakerheads, insurance for my collection of collectible sneakers.
Yeah, there is some. So you think about what are the core, not always the needs, but what do you as a sneakerhead, what do you give a shit about the most? And honestly, is if you buy something or if you trade something, is if they show up or not, right? So there is like a and I don't want to get too far into the weeds of the policy. There's people far more experienced and qualified on my team as well as outside of our team on this. But there is some logistics perils that are covered as well. But yeah, you're right. So Tony, you have a closet full of shiny, colorful, badass sneakers, and you use platforms like Unboxed to keep track of all of them and trade them, and we make sure that stuff's taken care of.
Amazing, love it. And people say insurance is boring. So thank you for
the worst part about insurance is not as boring. The worst part about insurance is telling people that you're in insurance, right?
See, I am actively changing that. My mission in life is changing that. So thank you for engaging with questions you didn't expect. But so before we started recording, we talked a little bit, and quite clearly you're very passionate about this. So tell me about the personality of a Surely, the culture and the personality of a Surely.
Yeah, and I think it's not just a Surely, but I think it evolves with the people we're attracting, right? So there's kind of three key types of people we look for, we're attracted to, and we've been fortunate enough that they become attracted to us and what we're building. One is high performing doers. We're at building this in a very lean. I think there's not a lot of people that get really excited about multiple layers of middle management, right? So the majority, the entire team are people who are doers, people who roll up their sleeves and work, right? And not only do they people who work, they're high performing. These are people who are accomplished. We affectionately say we all kind of have our vanity check marks on LinkedIn already. There's not really anybody on the team that needs to go prove to anybody else, including themselves, that they're good at their job, right? So that's one. Two, people who are just crazy curious and passionate about X. We don't care. It can be about planting flowers. It can be about Star Wars. It can be about video games. It can be about insurance. It can be about football or hockey. It can be about breeding bunny rabbits. I don't care. Be passionate, be curious, be somebody who wants to learn, and be unapologetic about it. That's kind of characteristic number two we look for and is consistent across the team. And then three, there's it's the good person kind of checkbox. People who look at life as a zero-sum game. Winners and losers typically don't fit well in our culture. People who are really motivated to build value for their customers, their communities, their relationships, in that 1 + 1 = 3 type of environment. We're really fortunate that the culture embodies that at Surely, and hopefully looking to double down on it.
Fantastic. So I have to ask, because I am one of those crazy people that I am deeply passionate about the things that I'm passionate about. Insurance careers happens to be one of those. I'm also a gamer. I'm also into flight simulation. I'm into sim racing. I'm into a lot of nerdy stuff, and when I'm into something, I'm in deeply, right? So I am really curious. And my girlfriend.
Actually, you're a Wikipedia power user, aren't you? Like when Wikipedia comes for that $3 donation, you're clicking on that thing immeditely.
You're not incorrect. And YouTube also. I'm a huge fanatic of YouTube. I have a paid YouTube account that I get a lot of views out of.
You would absolutely fit into our culture, Tony.
Yeah, exactly. So and by the way, my girlfriend, who's also in insurance, she's a fellow CPC, fellow MBA. She is equally nerdy about travel. and she's currently on a round the world trip. She's trying to break a world record and stuff. Like, it's super cool. But when she gets back, you're gonna be the first company that I'm gonna suggest she look at. But I am really curious. So what is your passion then? Like in what topic, what crazy subculture are you personally really nerdy about?
Yeah, hockey's one of them. Music is another. And it's not just music. I don't know a lot of it, but I get really excited about finding new music, right? Hockey in general. I mean, I grew up small town Minnesota. It was part of the culture. It was
So,
I think it was required by law in our town to try hockey for third grade.
Did you play?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to play until I was 26, almost 27 years
Oh,
old.
wow.
Yeah, so
what position did you play?
I was primarily a forward. I was I was good enough to continue to play, but not good enough to make it a career.
So, okay. So I don't know if you ever read Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, but it has it starts with hockey, right? Now, I think the example from Outliers is from Canada, not from Minnesota, but Minnesota so close. So I'm curious, were you born early in the year or late in the year?
May 23rd, 1980.
Oh, so your chances were already limited. Okay.
I mean, if my parents had planned better, I probably would have made it to the NHL.
Exactly. So for those of you that have not read Outliers, I believe that I have a video summary of it on the Insurance Nerds YouTube channel. So just go to YouTube. I'll include the link, or you can search Insurance Nerds Outliers, or go read the book You Bum. It's a fantastic book.
It's kind of wild. So by the way, that's based on the birthday cutoffs in Canada versus the United States around because it's based more on grades here in the US versus birth years in Canada. It's really fascinating, but also there's the outliers. Like, I have a close friend that was born December 26th that played 11 years in the NHL.
Oh, so he just had incredible talent, basically, against all odds, kind of thing. I'm December 19. So I grew up in Costa Rica. So my chances, being 5'7", growing up in Costa Rica, where there's exactly one hockey rink or one ice rink, it's not even a hockey rink, and being born in December, my chances of the NHL were like,
the stars are not aligned for you. Yeah,
exactly. But it's a really fun sport.
By the way, we spend a decent amount of time in Nosara.
So my best friend got married in Nosara, and it's actually a really cool story because he's kind of the linchpin of my group of friends. And I spent 2 years in San Francisco trying to find him a husband. So I am probably the straight guy that has spent the most time in gay bars in San Francisco in the last like 50 years, because it was like 2 years of my life, every Saturday, every Friday, trying to find him a husband. We succeeded. And then they live in San Francisco, but they did do the wedding in Nosara because that's the place that he loves. So basically, I attended the first gay wedding in Costa Rica in Nosara when it was still not legal, because it only became legal in Costa Rica a couple of years back. So anyway, Nosara is a wonderful place, really far away.
We traveled down there maybe 8-9 years ago. I'd have to think about it exactly off the top of my head, when it was just basically two places where you could get a beer, which is a far cry from what it is now.
It's
one friend who was a hedge fund guy in London, who I ironically spoke to about an hour and a half ago, hated his job. We were on our way back to the airport. He showed up in no shirt and beach shorts, and he's like, I think I'm gonna stay. Like,
I've made enough money. No,
excuse me, what? We went back, and fast forward, he bought a house down there 4 days later, and we've been spending time down there. The house that they own is right behind Beach Dog Cafe, so we get a walk to the beach. It's wonderful.
I totally get that. My girlfriend, who's doing the Run the World trip, is taking a year off, and she started in Bali. So she's sitting in Bali for like a week. by the end of the week, she's like, I haven't made enough money to retire in the US, but I could probably stay here for the rest of my life and have enough money to do that. She didn't say it, but the subtitle, that the underline, right, between the lines, reading between the lines, the only reason she didn't stay is because of me, because I was still here and I wasn't quite willing to retire yet.
So
But I totally get it.
To tie it back to insurance, actually have a good little story about Nosara and insurance. So when we were, I don't think we'd even raised capital at this point. We were still looking for authority for our first MGA product. And I was down in Costa Rica over Thanksgiving, which is I'm always there over Thanksgiving holiday. And it was the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. We did like the final MGA agreement call. And I was still using what was freeconferencecall.com because for obvious reasons, it was free. Or no, Uber Conference, I'm sorry. And what I didn't realize is when you sign in, it acknowledges where you are physically, right? And so we go through the hour call, get done. They're like, okay, great, we're going to do this thing. And the head of financial institutions of the carrier that was giving us authority, it's like, so Carp, are you going to go get into the waves tonight? And I hadn't told my co-founder that I was down in Costa Rica. Right. And so it was kind of funny that I was trying to hide, but we finalized our first MGA agreement when I was actually in the house in Costa Rica.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's a really awesome story. Thank you. So one of the questions that I had what was why do people come to work for Assuredly? We kind of talked about it, but if there's anything else that you want to add, definitely let's go ahead and add it.
No, I think everybody's story is a little bit different, right? I mean, I know it's there's an intention around how we recruit. I know it's funny with my co-founder, gentleman by the name of Ty Sagalo, was a founding team member and first insurance person at Lemonade, which I think a lot of people are familiar with. And I don't know if I believe this is public. If not, we'll have to cut this out. But a big thing for them is they were looking for professionals who were in like career midlife crisis, right?
They said that in the book, so yeah. It's
okay, good.
Yeah.
And so so that's nothing. So it's something a little different than that. I think where it is we have we look for folks that are still interested and have like a little bit of vision or passion on the inside. We're still irksome a little bit. There's pain associated with some of the frustration versus just frustration that's tolerable. So we kind of look for those people, not dissimilar to if you're selling, you look for pain. It's not dissimilar around that. So typically somebody has some personal, some personal journey associated with why they want to make the world a better place. And insurance is their knowledge, where they're subject matter experts. So that's typically kind of what we look for, or more importantly, that's who kind of comes to us. How they find us, I know how they find us. We've been pretty intentional about that. But I think everybody's story is a little bit different. It's been fun to actually kind of post-mortem, ask the team about that, right?
That's a great idea. Really, really great idea. You should do the same when somebody leaves, but when they come, I didn't know any company that does it on the way in. That's a really good. I'm gonna start suggesting that. That's a really good idea. I'll give you credit on that. The word disruption has been thrown around a lot in the insurance / insurtech, right? When I used to live in Berkeley, in California, Silicon Valley, and I was running Insurance Nerds, and the word insurtech didn't exist yet, right? And it was very early on, and I started getting calls from venture capitalists, and they would buy me dinner in exchange for picking my brain about insurance. And they were obsessed with the word disruption. And at that time, for them, disruption literally meant, I had more than one of them tell me this, we're going to put State Farm out of business in 5 years. needless to say, it is now like 9 years later, like it's like 7 years later. And yeah, we have not put State Farm out of business. And nowadays, the relationship is so different between insurtechs and insurance. So I'm curious on your view when it comes to disruption of the insurance industry.
There's three kind of key things we can talk about here. The one I'm just going to pass over really quick. I don't want to dive into like a macroeconomic study on why the state farms are never going to go out of business, right? It's similar to it's one of the conundrums with with addressing clean energy and how do you replicate GDP in a new form, blah 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 blah. So because of macroeconomic forces like that, and just the fact that we're not assholes, we even have it in our HR policy that there is the word disruption is not a word that we're allowed to use. We're very much focused on evolution, on partnership. We recognize, today we're primarily sitting as an intermediary. We understand the responsibility of being a two-sided marketplace, of both allowing the carriers to make tolerable returns on their investments, but also, helping everybody, including policyholder, adapt to changing realities of today's world, right? And so when we are not the disruptor, right? Ultimately, the policyholder's the disruptor. We're just adjusting to what their needs are and finding ways to evolve the industry to adapt to that.
Makes perfect sense. And I think you might have put that better than just about anybody else that's been in the podcast, at least during my time.
That's not a competition. I appreciate the compliment.
That's fantastic. So you already kind of touched on it, but just to make sure that we definitely hit it. As an insurtech, surely, or even just the insurtech world in general, 2,000 plus companies. What is the role of the insurtechs when it comes to the incumbents? What should you be doing as an insurtech?
I mean, I can't speak for everybody. I can speak for ourselves, right? I think there's some beautiful business models out there in insurtech that just aren't for us, right? But for us, I think that it's repeating that is saying, what are the changing realities of today's world, and how do we help both sides of that marketplace adapt to that, right? There's a modern expectation of a user experience that exists out there, whether you're a company or a personal lines policyholder, that I don't know if that is consistently delivered in the insurance industry today. I think the value propositions of the intermediary space of, invoking trust in a buying decision, advisory, supporting somebody when something goes wrong, whether they lost their password or their house burnt down or some other peril becomes a reality. And then the third is allowing people to make a intelligent business decision with the least amount of friction possible. Replacing those value propositions in the form of what a modern user, accepts to get that information, is changing, and the acceleration of change is not going away. So I think the ability to support evolving business models faster is maybe a consistent theme across insurtechs. It's certainly one for ours. Going back to, like I said, we all kind of have our LinkedIn vanity metrics as a team. And so I think it gives us a little more, certainly confidence on our side, but it validates our ability to kind of look at the incumbent business models and just simply take a step back and say, is that right? And now we don't want to go put Allstate or State Farm, whatever the analogy you said, out of business, but how can we be an agent of change to evolve the business models to support the new realities?
I think that's the wise way to do this in general, and most insurtechs today, the current wave of insurtechs have matured, and I think that's how they're approaching it. They're looking at enabling a part of the transaction somewhere, not at disruption.
Yeah, but it's important to note though, like that doesn't mean that we're going to play nice and sandbox with everybody just because, right? No, I think that there's a lot of frivolous fees that are sitting up there, right? And so if you really do go back and if you go back and focus the value propositions, right? If somebody creates a value that warrants compensation, that person deserves to get paid, right? I think one of the big struggles that's coming down the pipe that I don't think has been acknowledged enough by the incumbent industry, particularly the intermediaries, is pricing compression. When if somebody's getting on average 12.5, 15% for certain lines of business, but there's some type of commoditization around that sale, I think the expectation that that's going to have some pricing pressure. You need to start adapting to that quick, right? Because that's just the reality. So the value propositions of each stakeholder remain. Certainly the broker agent, right, in certain things. The compensation structure for those, each each stakeholder in the value chain, I think it's going to come under a lot of scrutiny.
Agreed, 100%.
For those that don't adapt and leverage some the modern user experience tools.
I 100% agreed. And in fact, I would add, I come from the carrier space. I'm a carrier guy through and through. I did claims, and I spent most of my career time as an underwriter, and yet in the carrier space, the expense ratio has to come down to reality, right? We have to bring in the right tools, and now I think we need to do it in being very careful to maintain insurance as a great career, which is where my heart is. But
I think in terms of the careers is actually getting better, right? I think there's an interesting thing, like, so being in New York for 13 years. Part of the reason I ended up in insurance is because I didn't have the pedigree to get into a Morgan Stanley. The reality is, who goes into insurance? People who have family members, right? People who end up don't getting into the banks. It's kind of funny. Like, I went to Providence College, and so many people at BC say, "Oh, so you're at my safety school," right? Is insurance safety industry for the financial services, and I don't think that's the case anymore. I think there's a level.
That's what I was going to say. We are slowly changing that. We're slowly making this a destination industry, not a backup industry, and that's a really good thing. The
worst thing about being in insurance is telling people you're in insurance. It's a stigma,
and we're changing that. We're changing that little by little.
It's an absolutely fascinating industry and very dynamic. So I think some of those brilliant people in the world operated in insurance. I think the effectiveness of that brilliance, I think, has a little bit of a governor on it because of business model debt that's stretched across the industry.
And technical debt. That's awful.
Yeah. And well, I'm honestly, like, I'll attribute that as a subcategory behind business model debt. Because in order, the business model needs to adjust in order for the technology to support that, right? That's
very true. Very, very, very true. You got lucky in falling into insurance. I think most people did. Very often I get calls at chatwithtony.com, which is my free career advice service. I get calls of finance majors who are freaked out because they went to school specifically wanting to go into investment banking or MBAs that went to school specifically to go into consulting, and for whatever reason it didn't work out. Either they didn't get the job, or the market died, the wrong time, economy is not in the right place, or they tried it and they hated it, or whatever, it just didn't work out. And they call me, they now find themselves at an insurance company and they're panicked. They feel like their life is ruined. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. You got really lucky.
Yeah.
Now let's find you the right place within insurance. But this is a much better industry. We don't get credit for it, but it's a much better industry.
Tony, what was that free consulting service you said? Is this going to flash up the screen right now?
Chatwithtony.com. I do mention Chat with Tony all the time. The part of Insurance Nerds that I forget to mention is our Slack channel. The Insurance Nerds Slack channel is kind of like the one neutral Slack channel where anybody from insurance or insurtech can participate. And it's a fantastic community, and anybody can join insuranceslack.com. So yeah, I'll probably get both of those to flash. So David, we're quickly running out of time here. I'm looking forward to see you at ITC, because this has been an amazing conversation. I look forward to continue, hopefully bring you back in a year or two to talk more about what you guys have done as you guys continue to grow. But I have one final question, that probably the most important question of the whole podcast. So are you a Minnesota Wild fan, a Texas Stars fan, a New York Rangers fan, or a completely different team than the areas where you've lived?
I'm one of those annoying hockey purists. I'm a hockey fan, right? So certainly not Dallas. I follow players and teams that I enjoy watching. I was fortunate, a lot of my friends were able to make it to that level. And so for, I would say, my 20s and certainly a good part of my 30s, just following my friends and cheering for them. I did have Ranger tickets for a little bit.
Okay.
I wasn't a Rangers fan. It was convenient that it was 20 blocks away from my apartment in New York. But also growing up in Minnesota, I grew up watching college hockey. So the North Stars left in the early 90s. Which obviously then you can kind of understand that my age here. And so I was a Minnesota Golden Gopher fan. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Any specific player that has like for me, very predictable, in basketball, Michael Jordan, in soccer or football, Pelé. So Wayne Gretzky, or is there a different player that really?
I mean, the players that are coming today, it's so fast, it's so skilled. I mean, obviously Sidney Crosby is one of the best complete players that's ever put skates on. You know, our family's friendly with Sid. He played with my brother Mark in high school, and even a better person than a hockey player. I mean, Nathan McKinnon, not to keep name dropping, but Nathan McKinnon went to our high school, and it was one of my brother's advisees. But so he's dynamic. McDavid does things faster, that he does things that people can do standing still, and he does them at a speed that's never been accomplished in the game. He is just an absolute treat to watch. You know, so there's some great players out there to watch right now. The game is absolutely wonderful right now.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Sorry I kept you a little bit longer than I said I would, but it's been a great conversation. I will tag you on LinkedIn as soon as it goes live, and I'll tag the company also. Very excited to see you guys continue to grow. I think you're doing this right. So just thank you for all you're doing, and thank you for all you're doing on the employment side, making Surely a fantastic company to work for.
I appreciate that. Well, we're looking, so we're growing the team very selectively, and then also the newsletter that we put out on a monthly basis. We'll talk about some of the things that are going on, some opportunities both from an employment perspective as well as for insurance.
For the listeners, so how do you sign up for the newsletter? Just go to a Surely website?
Yeah, so yes, there'll be a button on the bottom of the Surely sign up for the newsletter, as well. Our LinkedIn page is easy to find all those things. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, Tony, thank you so much.